Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to dive deep into how to learn to accept rejection. Now I know what you're thinking, Jim. Why on earth would I want to learn to accept rejection? Isn't the goal to avoid rejection? Well, my friends, that's where most people go wrong. You see, rejection isn't something to be feared or avoided. It's something to be embraced, learned from, and even celebrated. Yes, you heard me right. Celebrated. Let me tell you why. Rejection is not the enemy. Rejection is your teacher, your guide, and often your doorway to success. The most successful people in the world, in business and relationships, in any field you can think of. But here's the key. They didn't let it stop them. They learned to accept it, to grow from it, and to use it as fuel for their journey. Now, I want you to think about this for a moment. How many times have you held back from pursuing a dream, asking for a promotion, or even asking someone out on a date simply because you were afraid of rejection? How many opportunities have slipped through your fingers because you couldn't bear the thought of hearing? You see, that fear of rejection is far more damaging than rejection itself. It's like an invisible prison that keeps you locked in your comfort zone, never allowing you to reach your full potential. But here's the good news. You have the key to that prison, and that key is learning to accept rejection. Let me share a little story with you. When I was starting out in my career, I was terrified of rejection. I would avoid any situation where I might hear no. But then, one day, a mentor of mine gave me a challenge. He said, "Jim, I want you to go out and get rejected 100 times this month." At first, I thought he was crazy. Why would I intentionally seek out rejection? But then he explained. He said, "Jim, by the time you've been rejected 100 times, you'll realize that rejection isn't fatal. In fact, you'll probably find that for every 99 no's, you'll get one. Use that makes it all worthwhile." And you know what? He was right. That challenge changed my life. I started asking for things I never would have dared to before. I made proposals, pitched ideas, reached out to people I admired, and yes, I got rejected a lot. But I also started to succeed in ways I never had before. You see, rejection is like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. And the stronger your rejection muscle, the more resilient you become, the more risks you're willing to take, and the more opportunities you create for yourself. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. Learning to accept rejection is a process. It takes time, it takes practice, and yes, it takes courage. But I promise you, it's worth it. Because on the other side of that fear of rejection is everything you've ever wanted. Let's break this down a bit. Why is rejection so hard for us to handle? Well, it goes back to our primitive brain. In our caveman days, rejection from the tribe could mean death. So our brains are wired to avoid rejection at all costs. But here's the thing. We're not cavemen anymore. Rejection isn't going to kill us. In fact, in today's world, avoiding rejection is far more likely to kill our dreams than rejection itself. So how do we rewire our brains to accept rejection? The first step is to change our perspective. Instead of seeing rejection as a failure, we need to see it as feedback. Every no is actually valuable information. It's telling you something about your approach, your timing, or the person you're dealing with. If you can learn to see rejection this way, suddenly it becomes a tool for growth rather than a reason for despair. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're in sales and you've just been rejected by a potential client. Most people would feel discouraged, maybe even question their abilities. But what if instead you asked yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I improve my pitch for next time? Suddenly, that rejection becomes a stepping stone to success rather than a road. The second step in learning to accept rejection is to detach your self-worth from the outcome. This is crucial, my friends. Your value as a person is not determined by whether someone says yes or no to you. You are worthy. You are valuable, regardless of any external validation or rejection. I am not my rejections. I am not my successes. I am worthy regardless of the outcome. Say it with me again. I am not my rejections. I am not my successes. I am worthy regardless of the outcome. This is so important. I can't stress it enough. When you truly internalize this, rejection loses its power over you because you realize that a no doesn't diminish your worth. It's just information, just an opportunity to grow and improve. Now, let's talk about persistence. You've probably heard the saying, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Well, I'm here to tell you that's not just a cute saying, it's a formula for success. The most successful people in the world are not those who never face rejection. They're the ones who keep going in the face of rejection. Think about some of the most successful people you know of. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. Oprah Winfrey was told she wasn't fit for television. Stephen King's first novel was rejected 30 times. J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 different publishers before Harry Potter was accepted. What do all these people have in common? They didn't let rejection stop them. They kept going, they kept improving, they kept believing in themselves and their vision. And eventually they succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. You see, success is not about avoiding rejection. It's about persisting through rejection. It's about getting back up every time you're knocked down. It's about saying, okay, that didn't work. What's next? Now, I can almost hear some of you thinking, but Jim, it's not that easy. Rejection hurts. It's discouraging. And you're right. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's necessary for your growth, necessary for your success, necessary for living a full and meaningful life. So how do we deal with the pain of rejection? Well, the first step is to acknowledge it. It's okay to feel hurt or disappointed when you're rejected. Those feelings are natural and valid. The key is not to dwell on them. Feel them, acknowledge them, and then let them go. One technique I find helpful is to give yourself a time limit for feeling bad about a rejection. Maybe it's an hour, maybe it's a day. But after that time is up, it's time to move on, to learn from the experience and to try again. Another powerful technique is to reframe rejection as a numbers game. If you know that on average, it takes 10 no's to get to a yes, suddenly those no's become stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. Each rejection brings you one step closer to success. Now, let's talk about something that might seem counterintuitive at first. I want you to start celebrating your rejections. Yes, you heard me right, celebrate them. Because each rejection is proof that you're putting yourself out there, that you're taking risks, that you're growing. I want you to start keeping a rejection journal. Every time you face a rejection, write it down. But don't just write down the rejection, write down what you learned from it, how you're going to improve next time. And here's the kicker. At the end of each month, I want you to throw yourself a little rejection party. Celebrate all the risks you took, all the growth you experienced. You see, when you start celebrating your rejections, you take away their power to hurt you. You transform them from something to be feared into something to be proud of. Because let's face it, the only people who never face rejection are those who never try anything new, who never put themselves out there, who never strive for more. Is that the kind of life you want to live? A life of safety and comfort, but also of limitation and unfulfilled potential? I don't think so. I think you're here because you want more. You want to grow, to achieve, to become the best version of yourself. And to do that, you need to learn to accept rejection. Now let's talk about resilience. Resilience is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And learning to accept rejection is one of the best ways to build your resilience muscle. Every time you face a rejection and keep going, you're getting stronger. You're building your capacity to handle adversity, to bounce back from setbacks. And here's the beautiful thing about resilience. It doesn't just help you in the area where you faced rejection. It spills over into every area of your life. When you learn to handle rejection in your career, you become more resilient in your personal relationships. When you learn to handle rejection in your creative pursuits, you become more resilient in facing life's everyday challenges. So in a way, rejection is a gift. It's an opportunity to build your resilience, to become stronger, more capable, more confident. But only if you're willing to embrace it, to learn from it, to use it as a tool for growth. Now, I want to address something important. Learning to accept rejection doesn't mean you become immune to it. It doesn't mean you never feel hurt or disappointed. What it means is that you develop the tools to handle those feelings, to process them in a healthy way, and to move forward. It's like building physical strength. Just because you can lift heavy weights doesn't mean they become weightless. They're still heavy, but you become strong enough to lift them. In the same way, rejection might still sting, but you become strong enough to handle it, to learn from it, to use it as motivation rather than letting it defeat you. Let's talk about the role of self-talk in learning to accept rejection. The way you talk to yourself after facing rejection is crucial. Most people have a tendency to engage in negative self-talk. I'm not good enough. I'll never succeed. Why did I even try? Sound familiar? This kind of self-talk is not only unhelpful, it's actively harmful. It reinforces the fear of rejection and makes you less likely to take risks in the future. Instead, I want you to practice positive, supportive self-talk. I'm proud of myself for trying. This is an opportunity to learn and improv. Every nah brings me closer to a yes. It might feel awkward at first, especially if you're not used to talking to yourself this way, but I promise you with practice, it becomes natural. And when you change your self-talk, you change your mindset. And when you change your mindset, you change your life. Now let's talk about the concept of failing forward. This is the idea that every failure, every rejection is an opportunity to move forward if you approach it the right way. It's about extracting the lesson from every rejection and using it to improve. Let me give you an example. Let's say you apply for a job and you don't get it. Most people would just feel disappointed and move on. But someone who understands the concept of failing forward would do something different. They'd reach out to the employer and ask for feedback. What skills could I improve on? What made you choose another candidate? And then they'd use that information to make themselves an even stronger candidate for the next opportunity. You see, rejection is only the end of the road. If you let it be, if you approach it with the right mindset, it's just a detour on the path to success. It's a chance to reassess, to improve, to come back stronger. Now I want to talk about something that might surprise you. Sometimes rejection is actually a blessing in disguise. How many of you have ever been rejected for something, only to later realize it wasn't right for you anyway? Maybe it was a job that wouldn't have been a good fit, or a relationship that wouldn't have worked out. You see, not every opportunity is the right opportunity. And sometimes rejection is the universe's way of steering you towards where you're really meant to be. But you can only see this if you're willing to accept rejection, to learn from it, and to keep moving forward. I want you to start asking yourself, every time you face a rejection, how might this be for my highest good? You might not see it right away, but if you keep this question in mind, you'll often find that rejection leads you to even better opportunities. Let's talk about the concept of rejection threshold. This is the idea that we all have a certain level of rejection we can handle before we start to feel discouraged or want to give up. The key to success is to constantly work on raising your rejection. How do you do this? By exposing yourself to rejection on a regular basis. Remember the challenge I mentioned earlier about seeking out 100 rejections? That's one way to do it. Another is to set rejection goals for yourself. Maybe you commit to asking for one thing every day that you might be rejected for. It could be as simple as asking for a discount at a store, or as big as pitching a new idea to your boss. The point is, the more you expose yourself to rejection, the less power it has over you. Your rejection threshold goes up, and suddenly you're able to take bigger risks to put yourself out there in ways you never would have before. Now, let's address something important. Learning to accept rejection doesn't mean you become a pushover. It doesn't mean you accept every no without question. Sometimes rejection is an opportunity to negotiate, to problem solve, to find a different approach. For example, if you're in sales and a potential client rejects your proposal, that doesn't have to be the end of the conversation. Maybe you can ask what their concerns are and address them. Maybe you can offer a modified version of your product or service that better fits their needs. The point is, accepting rejection doesn't mean giving up. It means being flexible, being creative, and being persistent. Let's talk about the role of preparation in handling rejection. The better prepared you are, the easier it is to handle rejection. This means doing your research, honing your skills, and having a plan B and C and D ready. For example, if you're going into a job interview, don't just prepare for the possibility of getting the job. Prepare for the possibility of rejection too. Have a plan for what you'll do if you don't get the job. Maybe it's applying to other positions. Maybe it's taking a course to improve your skills. Maybe it's starting your own business. The point is, when you're prepared for rejection, it loses its power to derail you. Now, I want to address something that many people struggle with, the fear of success. You might be thinking, Jim, we're talking about rejection. What does fear of success have to do with it? Well, my friends, more than you might think. You see, for many people, the fear of success is actually scarier than the fear of rejection, because success means change. It means stepping into the unknown. It means potentially outgrowing relationships or situations that are comfortable, even if they're not serving us. And so subconsciously, many people self-sabotage. They don't put their all into something because deep down they're afraid of what might happen if they succeed. They use the fear of rejection as an excuse to not really try. But here's the thing. When you learn to accept rejection, you also learn to accept success, because you realize that neither rejection nor success defines you. They're both just experiences, both opportunities for growth. So I want you to ask yourself, are you really afraid of rejection, or are you afraid of success? Are you holding yourself back because you're scared of hearing no, or because you're scared of what might happen if you hear yes? Now let's talk about the importance of having a support system when you're learning to accept rejection. It's crucial to surround yourself with people who believe in you, who encourage you to take risks, who help you process rejections in a healthy way. These people can be friends, family members, mentors, coaches, or even a supportive online community. The key is to have people in your life who understand what you're trying to achieve, who can offer perspective when you face rejection, and who can celebrate with you when you succeed. Remember, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So make sure those people are supportive of your goals and your growth. If you're surrounded by people who are afraid of rejection, who never take risks, who always play it safe, guess what? You're likely to adopt that mindset too. On the flip side, if you surround yourself with people who are constantly pushing themselves, who see rejection as a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block, who celebrate both successes and failures as opportunities for growth, that mindset will rub off on you too. Now, let's talk about the role of self-care in learning to accept rejection. This might not seem directly related, but trust me, it's crucial. When you're taking good care of yourself, physically, mentally, and emotionally, you're much better equipped to handle rejection. This means getting enough sleep, eating well, exercising regularly. It means taking time for activities that recharge you, whether that's reading, meditating, spending time in nature, or pursuing a hobby. It means practicing self-compassion and treating yourself with kindness, especially when you face rejection. You see, when you run down, stressed out, and neglecting your own needs, every rejection feels like a catastrophe. But when you're taking good care of yourself, you have the resilience to bounce back from rejection more quickly and easily. Let's talk about the power of visualization and learning to accept rejection. Visualization is a powerful tool used by athletes, entrepreneurs, and high achievers in every field. And it can be incredibly helpful in changing your relationship with rejection. I want you to try this exercise. Close your eyes and imagine yourself facing a rejection. See it clearly in your mind. Now, instead of feeling defeated, imagine yourself responding with grace and resilience. Imagine yourself learning from the experience, growing stronger, and moving forward with even more determination. The more vividly you can imagine this, the more you're training your brain to respond this way in real life. Now, as we start to wrap up, I want to leave you with a challenge. For the next 30 days, I want you to actively seek out rejection. That's right. I want you to try to get rejected at least once a day. Ask for things you normally wouldn't ask for. Put yourself out there in ways that scare you a little. And here's the key. I want you to celebrate every rejection. Give yourself a little reward every time you get a no. Because remember, every rejection is proof that you're pushing your boundaries, that you're growing, that you're living life to the fullest. In conclusion, my friends, learning to accept rejection is one of the most powerful things you can do for your personal and professional growth. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Because on the other side of that fear of rejection is everything you've ever wanted. Success, fulfillment, and a life lived on your own terms. Remember, rejection is not your enemy. It's your teacher, your guide, your stepping stone to success. Embrace it, learn from it, use it as fuel for your journey. And I promise you, you'll be amazed at what you can achieve. Thank you. And remember, the next time you face rejection, smile, because you're one step closer to your dreams